Have you ever wondered if the human body has the ability to warn you when death is approaching? And if I told you that he warns, yes, but almost no one pays attention? Imagine for a moment that these signs are happening right before your eyes, with your father, your husband, a dear uncle, or even with you, and are being completely ignored. It would be shocking, wouldn't it? But that is exactly what is happening every day with thousands of families. The human body is an incredibly intelligent machine, and before he gets in full collapse, he screams for help in subtle but very clear ways. The problem is that these vital alerts are often confused with simple things: everyday tiredness, natural aging, stress, or even mourning. But what many do not know is that some of these signs appear up to 15 days before death, especially in men over 50, who already face increased risks of serious diseases such as organ failure, silent infections, and advanced prostate cancer. Yes, we are talking about symptoms that indicate that something very serious is coming. But why do they go unnoticed? Because it is lacking information. Because sensitivity lacks. Because there is still a lot of shame and neglect when it comes to man's health. And unfortunately, this neglect costs lives. They cost parents, grandparents, siblings, and husbands that could be alive today. If anyone had noticed those 5 silent signs that usually appear days before the tragedy happened. Have you ever had the feeling that someone in your family was different, but didn't you know exactly what it was? What was more tired than usual, more discouraged, losing weight for no reason, or even confused, with difficulty focusing or remembering simple things? For know that these behaviors are often not coincidental. They may be the last warning of the body before turning off. And knowing how to recognize these signs can be the only chance to avoid the worst. Often the man tries to hide what he feels. He doesn't speak. He doesn't want to look weak. And the family, because it does not understand the symptoms, ends up completely ignoring the alert. And that is why this video is so important. Because today, you will understand exactly what these 5 signs are about 15 days before death, and that almost no one notices. Signs that are directly linked to serious prostate problems, heart failure, renal failure, and even neurological signs that indicate that something very serious is about to happen. The truth is that most people only realize that something was wrong when it's too late, when the wake is already marked, when doctors have said that there is nothing more to do. But what if you could act before that? What if, with the right information, could you protect someone you love, or even save your life? That's why you need to watch until the end. Because this can be one of the most important information you have ever received. And if you are over 40, 50, or 60 years, or know someone who has, this content needs to be shared. You will see that these signs are common. Most seem harmless, but hide a deadly risk. And by understanding this, you will be ahead of most people. You will be prepared to act, to seek help, and to prevent a tragedy from happening in a silent and inevitable way. Now that you understand how serious this subject is, I need to show you one by one the 5 most ignored signs that come up shortly before death, and that you need to identify immediately. But before revealing these signs, I want to ask you something very important. Pay attention to every detail that I will share from now. It's no exaggeration when I say this can literally save a life. Maybe yours, maybe that of someone you love. And take advantage of this moment to do something simple, but it helps the channel a lot and allows this content to reach more people. Leave your like right now, because YouTube only shows this type of video for those who really need when it realizes that the content is relevant. And do you know how he realizes that? Through your like, your comment, and your registration. By the way, you already enjoy to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because here you will find videos with real information based on science and experience, which will help you take better care of your health, especially if you are a man, went by 40 and want to live more vitality, without depending on medication or invasive procedures. And comments down here. Have you seen someone from your family go through any of these strange signs and not know what it was? Or did you feel something different in yourself but ended up leaving it? I really want to know your story, because it is precisely through the comments that we create a network of support, collective learning, and that can open our eyes. And a lot of people. Your participation may be the warning that someone else needed not to ignore what the body is trying to say. Does not underestimate the importance of your interaction here. So take a deep breath, because now we will dive into the 5 most dangerous and silent signs that the body can present days before death, and almost always go unnoticed by the family. Stay with me, because the first sign may seem simple, but when you understand what it really means, it will completely change the way you see health. The human body is a true smart machine, full of codes and alerts that it emits when something is not right. The problem is that, in the rush of everyday life, in the lack of information, or even for fear of facing the truth, many of these signs are completely ignored, especially when it comes to male health. How many times have you heard someone say that you are tired, that you are just aging? That is just the stress of the pulled routine. We normalize too much what is not normal, and that is a danger, because behind an apparent tiredness may be an early sign of organ failure. Behind that lack of appetite may be a serious infection. And when the man begins to forget simple things or seem off, perhaps it is not distraction. Maybe it's the brain already going into silent collapse. When these symptoms begin to appear, the body is basically shouting for help, and he screams discreetly, because this is how he operates, sending small, almost invisible signs that are only perceived by those who are attentive. And here is the big problem. Most people are not attentive. Sometimes man even realizes some change, but ignores. Sometimes the family notices that it is no longer the same, but justifies with age. And when someone finally realizes, it can be too late. And we are not talking about rare diseases or difficult to identify symptoms. We are talking about simple but extremely dangerous signs. Some of them may appear 15 days before death and still go unnoticed. Imagine the frustration of knowing that it was possible to have done something, that there was time to act, but the opportunity passed because no one knew what it really meant. This is a pain that many families carry to this day. The truth is that no one likes to talk about it. No one wants to think about being close to the end. But that is precisely why it is so important to pay attention. Because the body does not lie. He doesn't deceive. It gives alerts. And when we learn to listen, it can completely change the course of the story. It can prevent a tragedy from happening. So if you are a man and are over 40, or if you live with someone in this age group, pay close attention in the next few minutes. Because these signs are not only affecting the physical, they also reach the emotional, mental part and even the behavior of the person. Sometimes man begins to isolate himself, loses interest in the things you liked. It is silent, without energy, as if slowly empties. This is not freshness. This is not mourning. This is the body entering a critical phase that needs to be identified before it reaches the point without return. One of the biggest mistakes men make, and believe me, this is very common, is to think that health only needs attention when pain is unbearable, when they can no longer walk, lift, or breathe properly. But the body always warns before. Always. And this video is here precisely to teach you how to decipher these silent signs. Because what goes ahead is not speculation, it is not ageism. These are facts. Real symptoms that doctors, specialists, and studies around the world have already confirmed as indicators of imminent risk of death. And we are not just talking about cardiovascular disease or terminal internship prostate cancer. We are also talking about renal bankruptcy, rapidly evolving infections, severe breathing problems, and even neurological imbalances that, if they are not treated immediately, can lead to collapse within a few days. The saddest thing is that many of these cases could be reversed with a simple visit to the doctor, an examination done at the right time, or the change of a life habit. But when the person does not understand what the body is saying, he does not act, and time goes by. Worst of all, many of these signs manifest themselves in man's body in a silent way because he has learned early on that pain is a sign of weakness, that looking for a doctor is sick people, that complaining about a symptom is drama. And so out of shame, pride, or pure misinformation, he shuts up pain, shut up the discomfort, and along with that, shut up the only chance to survive. And that's exactly why you can't get out of this video, because here you will have access to a knowledge that most people do not have. And this can do the whole differente. Understanding that a simple sign can be the line that separates life from death is the first step in breaking this cycle of silence and starting to act with conscience. It's time to look at these symptoms seriously, responsibly, urgently. But it is not enough to watch. We need to absorb, reflect, and above all, to share this knowledge. Because if you understand, you protect yourself. But when you share, you protect other people as well. And right now, maybe someone in your family is presenting one of these signs and no one has noticed. Perhaps this content is the warning that will prevent emergency hospitalization, or even something worse. So, continue here with me. What comes next will surprise you. You will find out exactly what are the 5 signs that appear about 15 days before death, and you will understand why they are ignored even though they are so evident. But before I follow, I want to ask you something. If this content is already making sense to you, if at any time you saw yourself in any of these situations or thought of someone you love, leave a comment below. Tell me, you have seen someone show strange behavior, a change of attitude, an unusual weakness, and not knowing what it was. Right here in the comments. Now I know I can't ignore it. This shows that you are committed to your health, and help this video reach even more people. What you will hear now, you can completely change the way you see small symptoms that at first glance seem harmless. But the truth is that these signs, when combined, ignored, or misunderstood, are often the last alerts of the body before it enters total collapse. And the frightening, they usually appear between 10 to 15 days before a fatal outcome, but almost no one pays attention. Most people only realize later, when everything happened, when there is nothing else to do. And here comes regret. Therefore, what I will show you now is not just information, it is prevention. It is survival. It is life. Let's start with one of the most common and most dangerous signs: extreme fatigue for no apparent reason. This kind of tiredness is not the one who appears after a full day or after a sleepless night. No, this is a deep, constant tiredness that does not pass with rest. The person sleeps well, wakes up, and still feels as if he had carried the world on his back. Many times, man begins to drag himself around the house with no disposition, even for simple activities such as brushing his teeth or bathing. The voice comes out weak, the body loses strength. This is because the body is diverting energy to try to keep vital organs working, even when something very wrong is already happening inside. It can be a serious infection, it can be a heart problem, the kidneys, or even a multiple bankruptcy approaching. And this symptom is the body shouting, "I'm fighting with the last strength." The second sign that appears very often is the sudden loss of appetite and weight. This usually begins subtly. The person begins to reject certain foods to eat less. He says he is not hungry, that he is just unwillingly. Often it doesn't even realize that it is losing weight. But those who live in note that the clothes are more loose, that the face is more withered than the arms and legs are tuning. And this rapid weight loss is extremely dangerous because it is usually related to loss of muscle mass, which is vital for body support. And more than that, this loss may indicate that metabolism is failing, that the liver or kidneys are not working properly, that there is an internal infection or advanced cancer. When the body begins to disconnect, he loses his interest in food. It stops absorbing nutrients. And if you are seeing this in someone close, or even yourself, it's not normal. This is an urgent alert. The third sign is something that many confuse anxiety or nervous crises, but it can actually be much more serious. Irregular breathing or shortness of breath. This is scary. The person is sitting, stopped, and yet feels that he cannot fill his lungs. Sometimes you often sigh as if trying to look air. Other times, breathing gets fast and short. In some cases, the simple act of speaking already generates tiredness, and this may indicate imminent respiratory failure, pulmonary embolism, severe pneumonia, or even heart failure. The respiratory system is one of the first to answer when there is something wrong with the body. And the shortness of breath is not only physical, it also causes emotional despair, a sense of imminent death that cannot be ignored. If a man, especially over 50, begins to have difficulty breathing without making an effort, it needs to be investigated urgently. Now, maybe one of the one's most neglected NIs of all, mental confusion or speak dragged. This symptom is extremely dangerous as it is often confused with stress, mental tiredness, or even natural oblivion of age, but it is not. When a person begins to be confused with dates, forgets family names, exchanges words, or has difficulty setting up simple phrases, this may indicate that the brain is being affected. It can be a brain infection, a silent stroke, a hypoxia picture, when the brain does not receive sufficient oxygen. Sometimes the person looks aerial, as if they were distant. Other times it speaks slowly, with difficulty articulating words. These symptoms can evolve rapidly, and when the brain begins to fail, It is a sign that the whole body is already collapsing. Recognizing these signs early may be the difference between triggering a help in time or witnessing irreversible collapse. And last but not least, in fact, one of the most visible and ignored, is the pale bluish or cold skin signal at the ends. Lots of attention now. When the fingers of the hands or feet become cold, when the lips start to be purple, or when the skin assumes a grayish pale color, we are facing a critical alert. This is because the blood, which should be irrigating the whole body, begins to be redirected only to the vital organs, in a desperate attempt to keep the heart and brain working. It is as if the body is entering emergency mode. When this happens, it is a sign that circulation is failing and usually precedes a cardiorespiratory arrest. It is one of the last signs before the final collapse. And the most shocking is that the family is often on the side and does not understand what that means. It sees the color change, feels the cold in the skin, but thinks it is just a pressure drop, or that the person is tired, when, in fact, the body is saying goodbye. These 5 signs: extreme fatigue, sudden loss of appetite and weight, shortness of rest, mental confusion and cold or bluish extremities, are most often the last request for help from a body that is already in critical condition. They don't happen out of nowhere. They have a cause, and the sooner they are recognized, the greater the chances of reversal, treatment, survival. Ignoring these signs is the same as closing your eyes while the house is on fire. And if you have gotten here, it is because you are determined not to make this mistake. And now I really want to know about you. Have you ever seen someone present any of these signs and didn't understand what it was? Have you been through a similar situation? Or maybe you are watching this in someone in your family right now? Right here in the comments. I will be aware of every sign. This shows that you understand the importance of this content, and moreover, it helps spread this valuable information. And the most intriguing, and at the same time more painful, is to understand why these signs, even when shouting with all their strength, are simply ignored by the family. The answer is not as simple as it seems, but one thing is certain. Neglect is almost never evil, but for misinformation, fear, culture, and a series of beliefs that have been rooted over time, especially when we talk about male health. The truth is that a lot of people grew up listening that man doesn't complain, that strong man can handle silent pain, that looking for a doctor is a thing of weak people. And then, when a father, uncle, or husband begins to present clear signs that something is wrong, such as deep tiredness, slow speech, strange pallor, or a loss of appetite, the tendency is to justify ready-made phrases like, "This is just age," "He's tired," "It must be stress," or even, "It's just laziness." It is as if man's pain is invisible, and this is a serious problem, because while symptoms are seen as normal, the body is on a state of full alert. He is trying to warn that something within him is not working as he should, but who is around, often for lack of knowledge, cannot perceive the severity of what is happening. And the saddest thing is that the opportunity to act in time goes away, silently. The man continues to decline slowly, with symptoms that accumulate day after day, while family members believe he only has to rest a little more, eat something light, or wait for it to pass. And this is not just a common mistake. It is a mistake that costs lives, because the signs the body emits are not random. They follow a pattern, they have a sequence, they intensify, as if the body was counting down. The problem is that most people have not learned to read this code. We were not taught to interpret symptoms, much less to associate them with imminent death warning signs. We learned to deal with a headache, a fever, a flu, but they did not teach us to realize when breathing changes, when the skin cools, when the gaze gets lost. And then, all this becomes a great field of guessing, where you bet on luck and time, hoping that the body recovers alone, when in fact, it is losing the fight every minute. Another point that needs to be spoken, even if it bothers you, is that often man himself refuses to ask for help. He feels something is wrong, but prefers silence, pretends that everything is fine. And when someone in the family questions, he responds with a, "I'm just tired," "is an age thing," or then passes. And because there is already a history of silence and resistance, the family ends up accommodating itself. Do not insist. Do not investigate. And this makes room for a silent worsening, which evolves without barriers to the critical point. And when the situation comes to this point, when the man is already bedridden, With his body failing, with short breathing and distant gaze, the guilt appears. And with her, the desperation of wanting to go back in time and do everything different. But no one comes back in time. What you can do is learn from these situations and not repeat the same error. This is why understanding the signs that precede an imminent death is not exaggeration, not alarmism. It is prevention. It's careful. It is respect for life. Knowing what to look for, knowing what a sudden change of behavior means or a symptom that comes out of nowhere, is the best tool a family can have. This may be the difference between tracking a chance of reversal or dealing with a wake that could have been avoided. And it is important to remember that the signs we mentioned earlier, extreme fatigue, rapid weight loss, mental confusion, shortness of rest, and skin color change, all do not all arise at once. Sometimes they start so subtle that they are barely noticed. One day the man is hungry, the next he sleeps more than normal, then begins to forget names, and suddenly no longer has the strength to get out of bed. The body speaks of steps. But if no one is paying attention, these stages go unnoticed, and when the family finally realizes, the picture is already irreversible. Therefore, more than ever, it is essential to create an environment where to talk about health is natural, where signs are not ridiculed, where man can open without fear of being judged. And that starts indoors. It starts with simple questions like, "Are you really good?" Or, "Do you want to go to the doctor just to ensure?" It is these small attitudes that save. It is not to wait for fainting, high fever, or unbearable pain. It is acting in detail, in the subtle signal. Because those who love observe, who cares investigates, who is present realizes. The truth is that, unfortunately, many deaths could be avoided if families had recognized these signs in time, if they had understood that unusual behavior is not just a phase, if they had lost their fear of seeking medical help and facing the reality head-on, rather than trying to postpone the inevitable with empty hope. And that is precisely why this content needs to be spread. Because there is still time for many people. You can still warn you can still prevent, you can still save lives. And now that you have understood why these signs are ignored, and what happens when this happens, I want to place you in order. If at some point you felt that it all makes sense, if any scene has crossed your head, if you remembered someone in your family, write here in the comments, "I won't ignore the signs." Put this phrase in the comments. This shows that you are committed, that you are attentive, that you have understood the importance of this. What's more, this helps this video to be recommended for others who also need to hear this message. And if you've been through a similar situation, if you have already lost someone suddenly and then realized that the signs were there all the time, share your story here. You can be sure that your report will play other people. It will open someone's eyes. Sometimes a comment can make more difference than you think. So comment below. He writes, "Participate. If you have arrived here, you understand that the body does not fail to warn." He shouts, he begs, he gives clear signs, though often silent, that something inside is breaking, failing, deteriorating. And if these signs have already appeared, or if you have identified any of them in someone close, you can no longer wait. The first attitude you need to have is simple and straightforward. Seek immediate medical help. And it's not to wait to get worse, it's not to see if it improves the next day. It is not to be fooled thinking that it will pass alone. It is to act seriously, responsibly, urgently. Unfortunately, many deaths could have been avoided if the decision to seek medicine has resources, medicine has protocols, but she needs time. It needs the problem to be detected when there is still something to do, when there is still a chance, when the body still responds to stimuli. And this window of opportunity is short. When we waste time with acheisms, fear, with excuses, what could be treated becomes something irreversible. Therefore, before any of the signs you heard here, especially if they are combined, make an appointment as soon as possible. Go to the health post, go to the hospital, talk to a general practitioner and explain in detail what is happening. And if the person who has the symptoms is a man over 50, care must be even more specific. In this case, prostate examinations are fundamental. Don't ignore it. Prostate cancer is a major cause of male death in Brazil, and the frightening is that it can evolve for years without evident pain or signs. Sometimes the first symptoms are precisely these: extreme fatigue, weight loss, mental confusion. Therefore, the PSA exam and rectal touch are indispensable. And it's no use saying you're ashamed, it's uncomfortable, you don't like a doctor. It is uncomfortable even to lose life for something that could be diagnosed and treated. In addition to prostate exams, also ask for a complete blood count that can point out infections, changes in white and red blood cells, renal failure, liver problems. Also request an electrocardiogram, because many cases of extreme tiredness and short breathing are related to heart problems. And if there are neurological symptoms such as confusion, speech difficulty, unusual forgetfulness, a magnetic tomography or resonance imaging may be needed to verify if there is any neurological framework developing. These tests are simple, accessible in many places by SUS, and can save a life. But it's not just about going to the doctor. It's about changing the way you see health. It's about stopping pushing with your belly, stopping delaying what is urgent. It's about looking at yourself with more attention, with more respect. It is about understanding that care for the body needs to be constant, not only when pain becomes unbearable. And here is a hard but necessary truth. Whoever expects a miracle often ends up too late in the face of reality. Miracles exist, yes, but prevention is still the best tool we have. And if you have already sought help and the tests have given nothing but the symptoms persist, don't give up. Seek a second opinion. Take each symptom seriously. The fact that an examination shows nothing today does not mean that everything is fine. The body takes time to manifest some diseases, and attentive gaze, persistence, and care can make all the difference in early diagnosis. Persistence saves. Insistence on health itself is an act of love. And if you are your father, your uncle, your grandfather, your husband, someone in your family who is going through it, be firm, convince, light. Do not expect him to decide alone, because many men still carry within themselves that wrong idea that doctor is something for when there is no way. You who already know all this can be the difference. It may be the warning that saves. It may be the missing push to seek help. And by the way, I want you to understand something that may seem simple, but it is very powerful. The right information at the right time can change destinations. What you have learned in this video, many still don't know. Many people are still in the dark, thinking that tiredness is just tiredness, that lack of appetite is just a phase, that cold skin is just a sign that time has cooled. And so, in the next videos here on the channel, I will show you more depth how to identify silent signs of serious illness, how to better understand the symptoms of the body, and especially how to act before it is late. Let's talk about male health seriously. Let's break taboos. Let's turn information into prevention. I will show you habits that can help avoid this kind of situation. I will show you how to take care of the health of the prostate, how to adopt routines that protect the heart, the kidneys, the brain. Let's talk about eating, exams, the impact of sex life on man's health, the myths that get in the way, and the truths that save. And all this in videos like this, straight to the point, with simple language, without winding. But now, going back to the present moment, if you have identified any of these signs, if you have already realized something strange on someone in your family or even you, the time to act is now. And if you still have doubts, if you don't know where to start, already write it down. Full blood count, PSA, touch exam, cardiac evaluation, and if possible, an appointment with a urologist and a general practitioner. These are the first steps. Don't skip this part. Do not postpone. The time you save money. Putting on an appointment may be the time it will be missing later. And right now I want to ask you something. If this video has awakened something inside you, if you remind you of someone or made you think differently about how you take care of your health or the health of those you love, comments down here. I'm going to act now. Write this phrase. This helps the algorithm show this video to more people. Help this message to come where you need it. And more than that, it is your public commitment to your health. If you've been through a similar situation, if someone in your family had a sudden picture, and only then did you realize that the signs were there, share your story here. Don't be ashamed. Your experience can open someone else's eyes, can save another life. Sometimes what you write is exactly what someone needed to read to understand that you can no longer expect it. If you stayed until the end of this video, first I want to thank you from the heart. It shows that you really care about your health and the health of those you love. And now that you are here with me until the last seconds, it's time to take the next step. Subscribe to the channel right now and activates the bell so as not to lose the next videos. Here we will continue to talk about silent signs, serious illness prevention, prostate health, and everything that man needs to know to live longer and better. And take this moment to comment below. I went to the end because my health is worth a lot. Writes exactly that. This phrase shows that you are committed, help with video engagement, and can inspire others to watch until the end as well. Oh, and don't forget the like. If this content has helped you, leave your like now because it tells YouTube that this video is important and makes it appear for more people who need to hear this message. And of course, it's not gone yet. The next video is already appearing here on the screen, so click now and continue with me on this journey of information and prevention. I see you there.